Chapter 6, Mishnah 2. If an ohel is divided by a partition and there is a corpse on one side of the partition stops the tumah from spreading to the other side of it. The following Mishnah discusses whether a partition supported by a utensil can block tumah from spreading past it. People were on their way to bury a corpse and were about to pass through a portico, a kind of covered porch, that was in front of a house, and the door between the house and the portico was open. The people realized that when the corpse passes through the portico, its tumah would spread through the open door into the house and make everything in the house tameh. Therefore, one of the people in the funeral procession went ahead and shut the door before the corpse entered the portico to stop the tumah from entering the house. He then supported the door with a key. That is, he locked the door with a key and left the key in the keyhole so that the door should remain closed. The corpse was then carried through the portico. The law is that if the door can remain closed by itself without the key, the house remains tahor because the door is not being held in place by the key, and it can therefore block the tumah. But if the door cannot remain closed without the key, the house becomes tameh. Since the door is held in place by the key, and the key itself is a utensil that cannot block tumah, the door can also not block tumah. Therefore, the tumah of the corpse spreads into the house. The Mishnah gives another case of a partition held in place by a utensil. The same law applies in a case where a barrel of dried figs or a box of straw was placed in a window that stands between two adjacent rooms, and one of the rooms contains a corpse. If the dried figs or straw are packed tightly together and can remain in place by themselves, even if they are not inside the barrel or box, the contents of the other room are tahor. Since the figs and straw can stay in place on their own, they are considered a partition that blocks tumah from entering the other room. But if the dried figs or straw are not packed tightly and would fall out of the window if they were not in the barrel or box, the contents of the other room become tameh. Since the figs and straw are held in place by a barrel or box, which are utensils that cannot block tumah, the figs and straw can also not block tumah. Therefore, the tumah spreads through the window into the other room. A final case of a partition supported by a utensil. If someone divided a house that contains a corpse with earthenware jugs, that is, he stacked earthenware jugs from floor to ceiling to separate the area with the corpse from the rest of the house, and he then covered the jugs with plaster. If the plaster can stand on its own, that is, the plaster is very thick and can stand in place even without being attached to the jugs, the rest of the house is tahor, because the plaster serves as a partition to block tumah. But if the plaster is thin and cannot stand by itself, the rest of the house becomes tameh, because the plaster is being supported by utensils, the jugs.